Rotary, and some people have donated computers to us. We teach 10th class students, inter students, and degree students so that when they go for jobs, they don't get rejected. We teach the basics like Excel, Doc, ChatGPT, how to market. The basics we teach because most of them cannot afford computers and they have no access to them. And similarly, we have something called celebrations. Celebrations is celebrating your loved ones on their anniversaries, on their birthdays, on their death anniversaries. You could contribute to any of the causes that Wishwa showcases on its platform, wishwa.org. You could, Annadanam, for instance. There are a lot of people across the country who, when they go to hospitals, they come up from far-off regions and they little money they have, they keep it aside for the treatment of the patient. They sleep on platforms. They hardly eat anything. And we give them food every afternoon on Fridays, and it makes a lot of difference. There's similar such fundraisers. Please feel free to celebrate your loved ones with any of these causes.
Wishwa's commitment towards zero waste and the long way to go in achieving the goal begins with our material donation drive. Conducted twice a year during Diwali and Ugadi in Hyderabad, this drive collects clothes, books, toys, and other used or semi-used items for the underprivileged. Contributions from over 615 plus families have benefited around 2,800 individuals, providing essential items and support, bringing hope and dignity to them. Through these efforts, we transform the waste of some into the treasure of others, promoting sustainability and community welfare.
Namaskaram. A very good morning and welcome to WishwaTalks. My name is Trishant, and I thank you all for attending today's event on Zoom and to those watching on YouTube Live. For those of you who have attended a WishwaTalk before, a warm welcome back. And for our new joinees, here's a little bit about us. WishwaTalks is a platform to create awareness amongst people and to protect our social heritage and to let people make their own decisions. Here, we invite experts to discuss and explore diverse opinions, different perspectives, various issues, problems, and their solutions on various fields, including art and culture, healthcare, environment, education, and many more. Each webinar is an interactive session with a deeper understanding of the topic at hand. If you miss any part of the session or would like to go through the previous sessions, please visit our website, wishwa.org, or WishwaTalks YouTube channel for a full library of past WishwaTalks on various interesting topics. Today, we have with us someone who is not just talking about change, but actively building it, one ecosystem at a time. It's an honor to welcome Sarada Kalavapudi, the CEO of Dharmavana Nature Arc, DNA, a pioneering initiative dedicated to biodiversity conservation and climate sciences. Under her leadership, Dharmavana Nature Arc has restored over 400 acres of semi-arid habitat in Telangana, transforming it into a thriving space for flora, fungi, and fauna of the Deccan Plateau. But her work goes far beyond conservation. She is building a living laboratory where research, community, and nature come together. With a multidisciplinary background from Mudra Institute of Communications, Ahmedabad, and Harvard University, she brings a unique blend of science, strategy, and storytelling into the world of environmental impact. From leading research collaborations with the University of Hyderabad to championing citizen science and youth engagement, her mission is clear: to create an eco-secure future that all of us can be a part of. Let's come together to learn, reflect, and be inspired. Please join me in welcoming Sarada Kalavapudi. Without further ado, I now invite Ma'am to share her insights on time to listen to the soil, the silent emergency beneath our feet. Good morning again.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the brief introduction. As he shared, I'm Sharada, and I'm very, very glad to be here on a weekend to see so many people joining and on a topic that's very close to me, close to my heart. And it's really heartening to see so many of you all joining in just to hear about this topic. So to start off, as he shared, I come from a very multidisciplinary background. And so I'm no expert on soil or I'm no ecologist. Just like you all, I was very, very interested and curious and learned along the way. So as we go through this, I've taken sort of a stance that most of you all are coming from various backgrounds. So it's pretty generic, and we can take questions at the end of the session if there are any specific deeper questions about a particular point that I make here. So let me just start my presentation. 1 second. Can you all see my screen? I think everyone
Yes,
is on
Bambi.
mute. Yeah, okay. So
Can we?
okay.
It's still not in full screen though. Could you just check if it can be full screen?
Okay.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
So the topic for today is it's time we listen to the soil. And the reason I picked this particular topic versus a lot of other burning topics is this is something that we usually do not talk about very often. We are carried away with the issues that we see about climate change, water conservation, and health issues, and so on. Soil is something that we take for granted, much like our moms. We just believe that it's there and it's always there to serve us. And why will it not behave the way we want to? So we've just sort of taken soil for granted. And this presentation is sort of a way to bring you all up to speed in terms of why we are really in trouble and why I think that soil really needs to be conserved. So I'm starting off with the history of soil. So when Earth was formed almost 4.543 billion years ago, Earth was not actually having soil on it. It was a very, very molten sort of I think you can see my cursor, but you can see the image here. It was a red molten structure that looked like earth but did not have soil. So soil, the way that we know today, is just maybe in the planet's history, just 10% of time ago that it came into being. So that's somewhere around 500 million years ago. And the way soil actually got formed is a lot of organic matter got mixed with minerals, air, and water in a particular chemical composition. And that's the reason we have different types of soil across the globe. So it's very important to remember that this 5% organic, although it says 5% here, this is critical to see how soil behaves today. And so I wanted to just share that this is not something that's been there from day one on Earth. It took a lot of time. Life had to come in and life had to mix with the rocks that we see. And it's very interesting if you want to understand how soil came into being. But all in all, we just need to understand now for this particular presentation that this took millions of years to form. It did not happen overnight. It did not come by default. And it is a very, very, very slow process for the soil to be formed on Earth. So that's my first slide, just to set the history of why we're thinking that this needs to be conserved. So if I were to sort of go into an educative mode, what is exactly soil that we talked about? I mean, here I said, okay, there is a mix of all of these things, but what is actually soil? So soil has multiple levels, and it starts at the bottom at the bed as something that's called as bedrock. Then there is parent material, subsoil, topsoil, organic form, organic soil, organic matter that's there on top of the soil. And then, of course, all the life lives on it. So just this topsoil that you're seeing here, although the image looks very big, just to make 1 to 2 centimeters thickness of soil to be formed on Earth, it takes approximately 500 to 1,000 years of time. So just to set that in context, your great grandparents would have seen the formation of the topsoil that you're seeing today. So just think about it for a second. This topsoil is the one that is keeping us alive today. It is the basis for all our food systems. I'll come to that. But just to make this, it takes that longer time. It is not something that is there by default and then, it'll always be there. So there are a lot of issues of what happens to the top layer, organic and topsoil. It gets washed away. So every time that there is rain, what happens is the water sort of carries away the soil if it is allowed to. And water obviously is a very force, what should I say, a very energetic force which we cannot stop. Unless there is life on top that is sort of holding with the roots down to the topsoil, it can get easily washed off. So that's the context. If there is grass, if there are trees on top, if there is something that's sort of holding this soil and putting it back in its place, and it's usually the roots of plants and trees, then the topsoil stays. Otherwise, when it rains, it just gets washed off. And it's not just the rain, it is also the wind. The wind can also blow it away. So these are the top two issues. If there is running water and if there is wind coming in, you will see this topsoil being washed away. So why do we really need to worry about soil, right? I mean, let's say tomorrow there are soilless farms that are there that will feed us. Let's assume that a lot of things will be solved for us. But why do we really need to talk about soil? Because soil is the basis of all the life that we see today. If you look at evolution, the path that it's taken, if there was no soil, none of us would have been here. Forget about the plants, even we wouldn't have been there. So in the soil, you will see a lot of life. So one spoonful of soil, of healthy soil, holds more life than all of humanity put together. Just to set that in context, the 9 billion people, odd people, whatever the count is of people on earth, you will find in one spoonful of soil. And that's the amount of life that it holds. Other than the life, of course, it does a ton of other things magically, just like a mother. It sort of gives us nutrients, which allows us to have our food chains in place, our food systems in place, and it also holds the water. So if there is no water in the soil, then we will be flooded. So the soil sort of absorbs all the water that's falling on earth. It also is the biggest carbon sink. When I say carbon sink, people who are interested in climate change will understand that if the carbon is not absorbed and it stays back on what we call atmosphere or on top of the earth, then this earth will get so heated up that human life or no life will basically survive. So it's just without soil, there is no food, there is no life that is there inside that, there is no biodiversity, there is basically most of the things that we take for granted today are not possible. You will not have drinking water, there is no food, there is no life. So soil is life. And the way plants today, when we talk about food systems, soil is not just holding up the roots. Other than all this life that you're seeing here, there are tons of minerals in the soil. Again, I'll go back to my first slide. So 45% of the soil is minerals. I mean, this is an ideal soil composition. Obviously, it changes. But just remember this chart. So there are minerals, there is air, there is water, and then there is organic matter for soil to be healthy. So in this case, all the minerals that are there are the ones that are feeding plants to sort of make their food, other than the sunlight that they receive. If these are missing, then the plant really cannot thrive and cannot make food. And everything that we today take for granted is all coming because of these minerals in the soil. So as we go along, this is just the basic steps that I want you all to remember. And then when I spoke about, our food systems, this is one part. And the second one, as I was saying, if there is no soil, this water will not stay in one place, right? I mean, if it is not absorbed by soil, the water will run away to the ocean. Run away is the wrong word, but you understand what I'm saying. So our drinking water supply, our groundwater supply that we take for granted today, all the bore wells that we're drilling across the state and the country, so much so that there is one study that says that the Earth's axis has slightly shifted because of the number of bore wells that have been put into Earth. That's another topic for another day. But without soil, we will not have any water holding up in one place. There is nothing that will keep the water for us to sort of draw. And today, Obviously, the amount of water that we consume is another issue, but we are continuously drilling up this with bore pumps and so on. All of that is possible only because the soil is holding up the water. The soil itself allows the water to be retained, a healthy soil. And if the soil is sort of caked up at the top, where it doesn't allow water to to sort of be absorbed, then we will not have drinking water. And when we talk about drought, other than the food systems collapsing, it is also the water systems that will collapse. The third big piece that usually doesn't get spoken that often, but let's assume that tomorrow with some technology we'll figure out how to keep ourselves alive without food and water. Let's just assume. Even then, even if we somehow survive all of it, the soil, the amount of carbon that it absorbs. And again, just to go back to the basics of what we learned in our school, the plants work on photosynthesis, they absorb carbon dioxide and then, of course, leave out oxygen. But the amount of carbon dioxide that's absorbed by plants, other than that, even the soil absorbs. And if the soil doesn't absorb carbon, then obviously the amount of carbon dioxide that's left out will mean that the earth will get heated up, and our climate change issues that we see today, we don't know what percentage can be attributed to soil the topsoil loss, but basically soil is the carbon sink, along with the trees, of course. So just to encapsulate, it's our food systems, it holds our water, it also takes care of the biodiversity, the amount of life that is there in the soil. And then, of course, it's also the biggest carbon sink. So now I want to just take a step back to talk about from our perspective, right? I mean, soil as a whole, if you were to just take from India's perspective, I just want you all to look at this. This is a black and white map, I hope you can see, but there's a globe picture here. And there is a small circle on the globe that just encompasses India, China, and a bit of Southeast Asia, most of the Southeast Asia. So just to give you all a perspective, in this circle, 50% of the human population stays here. 50, half the population stays on this small circle, which is just 4,000 kilometers radius from a small city called Yuxi in China. And this is called Yuxi Circle. Basically, half the human population survive here. And one of the big reasons why they survive, and of course, India is a big part of it, wherever you see this darker yellow is where the population is higher, is because the number of rivers that we have, the healthy soil that we have, the alluvial soil that makes the plains so fertile that for centuries, India has been home to, and whatever the stats say now, we are the most populous country in the world, of course. But why was it possible? It was possible because, and not just today, if you look at history, at any point of time, India sort of held 25% of the world's population. The small one country, I won't say small, but this one country held close to 25% of the population through multitudes of history. You go back 100 years, you go back 200, 300, whenever history has been recorded. And one of the big reasons why this circle holds 50% of the population is the rivers that flow down from Himalayas in India, the rivers that are there in the south. And of course, China also has these large rivers like Yangtze, and Southeast Asia is blessed with the monsoon rain. The reason I'm saying all of this is the Earth's population has survived here purely because of the quality of the soil. The reason we are so populous, I mean, you can talk about policies, you can go back and say, okay, we've not had multiple issues can be discussed, but at the heart of the issue, is that our country has one of the most fertile soils in the world, and that's because of the multiple rivers that crisscross the country. And why we have these rivers and why is it that we receive so much rainfall is the unique place, and I want you all to see to the right. India is one of those countries. This is a map that's taken. I mean, this is a screenshot of the satellite view in the night. India is the only country where you'll see the population is spread across this country. It is not to one side of the country. It is not as though people are concentrated only on the cities, which is the case, but they are pretty spread around. And this is very unique. And why am I talking about this in case of soil presentation is most countries, including China, okay, so this is whole thing is China, 90% of the population is on the east coast. This is all desert. India is blessed because we have a mix of soils, and these soils sort of have allowed our generations, our ancestors to sort of grow the food, different types of food, and people came flooding to get our food, whether it's pepper or spices or the amount of rice that we grow. So we are blessed because of these monsoons. We are in the Indian Ocean. So there is a very strange phenomenon that's seen only in the Indian Ocean where we can predict when the winds blow from the western side and the eastern side. And then we have a monsoon timeline, which is sort of predictable, which has allowed both the food to grow and also our commerce to grow, where our shipfarers used to travel to other parts of the world, allowing a lot of commerce to happen much before even the Britishers came in. And the uniqueness of this is primarily, again, if you see, these are the different types of soils that we have in India. There is a forest and mountain soil, there's deserts, we have the alluvial soil, the black soil, red soil, laterite and lateric soil. So different types of soil. Again, if you go back to the geographical formation of the country, the Indian continent, when it sort of hit the Asian continent, I won't say Indian continent, but the Indian submass, the Himalayas shot up, and then sorry, I'm not using the right language, but you'll understand. So the rivers that flow through this, and also the Deccan Plateau here, Deccan Plateau is much older than the Himalayas. It's been there since when our Indian mass was connected to the African mass. So this mix of soils is very unique. And each of these allows us to grow different types of food, allows us to mine. Okay, we don't have oil, which we are seeing in our news today. But basically, we are self-sufficient primarily because of the types of soil that we have. Saying that, the reason why we need to pay attention to this is we are blessed, and if we want to continue to be blessed, and we need to feed our masses, then we need to make sure that our soil is taken care of. So that's the long and short of it. And just to give you all a perspective, across the globe, this is a map that talks about the spread of the agricultural land. So the biggest is China with 2 million plus acres of land. India is only at 689,000. US is at 1.6 million. But more or less, we're not completely self-sufficient, but we're able to feed our people thanks to green revolution and so on. And it's important to remember that the most populous country is not actually the one that has the biggest agricultural land. So we have a long way to go, and even a small slip up in terms of how our soil works for us will result in a catastrophe where we cannot feed the billions or the population that we have. So what are these issues? Why are we so worried about soil? Why am I saying that there is a crisis? Why am I saying that we need to listen to the soil? There is a concept called desertification that is taking place, where the soil sort of becomes, like I said, it needs to hold minerals, it needs to hold water, it needs to hold air and organic matter. When all of these fail, the soil is turning into, the word that's used commonly is desertification. And then climate change, like I said, it's the biggest carbon sink. If it fails to do what it's supposed to do, we're removing trees. To a certain extent, it's contributing to the climate change. And then the biodiversity loss. If there is no life, if there is no ecosystem, then we, as one of the many species that live on this earth, when that balance is lost, along with the rest of the life, we will also get wiped out. So basically, soil has all these issues going on, and I want to sort of focus on desertification because that's one of the biggest reason that we see. And the villain for desertification primarily is soil erosion. And when we say erosion, it means that whatever the types of soil, the soil mix that we saw here, if it is wiping out the top soil, we call it soil erosion, or the organic matter. If these two layers are wiped out, and it can wipe out other things also, but if these two are wiped out, we still call it soil erosion. And these, like I was saying earlier, happens because either there's a running water, so there is a rain, and then the water sort of takes away the topsoil with it. If there is no grass cover, if there are no trees on it, it is not protected. Or there is a very, very strong wind which can sort of wipe out if there is nothing else holding the soil together. So this soil erosion, the technical description is that it removes the upper layer of the soil from which plants get most of the nutrients and water. So this is the crux of the issue. And why does the land erosion occur? It's because primarily there is no cover on the land. And this can happen due to multiple issues. It can be grazing. It can be when we remove the crops, or rather when we harvest the crop, and then the soil is left bare. There are no trees, there are no windbreaks for the farms, and hence soil erosion occurs. So it's not just land. Okay, today I'm focusing on land because that's the big agricultural system, like I mentioned earlier. But there are a lot of other types of soil erosion that are occurring. And one big issue, again, if I go back to our Indian map, we have the biggest coastline, one of the biggest coastlines for any country, and a lot of the coastline is getting eroded. So this is one, I think, a report that was published recently, which shares that India's coastline is eroding. And why does the coastline get eroded? Again, it goes back to something very similar, where we're constructing too much on the coast. There are no mangroves, everything, all the trees that were sort of sea grasses that were holding the sand together are being lost. So multiple issues, but this is also, again, usually we don't think about this when we talk about soil erosion, but this is also one big issue that is hitting India. Then the desertification, as per a latest report, or rather this is 2019, almost 30% of India's land area is under desertification at different levels. So the darker the red, the higher the desertification. And again, as I explained, desertification is where the soil basically is getting hardened up. It doesn't have water, it doesn't have minerals, or there is no air trapped inside. It could be any of those issues, but usually we see that it's absolutely dry at the top. And so we talk about land harvest failing, agricultural crops failing. So this is one of the biggest issue that India is today facing. And this map sort of tells you where this is happening. We don't usually talk about this too much. Usually when you talk about soil erosion, no one talks about this, but there is also a lot of illegal sand mining that happens in the country today. And this sand is, of course, used for the construction purposes. And the river sand is sort of, the most preferred one for the construction. We don't have an alternative. And so we do need it for our construction, we do need it for our cities, but there is a lot of unplanned illegal sand mining that happens that sort of takes away the soil from the riverbeds. And then again, it is also, I think I shouldn't put desertification, this is the wrong header here, but this is also part of the soil erosion. Then another issue which supports a lot of livelihoods, and hence usually it is not spoken by politicians or ecologists talk about it, but no one else, is overgrazing. So India is one of the biggest beef exporters. It is also, given the population, even if our per capita consumption of meat is less, we have a very big issue with overgrazing. So our milk, our curd, our everyday consumption, it's a lifestyle that all Indians for generations have been following. And we respect our animals, we of course revere the cow, but the problem is when the numbers really shoot up, and all these animals feed on the grass that is there out in the open. When the grass sort of is eaten away, again, it leads to desertification. The reason being, there is no cover on top of the soil. It gets washed away in the water, it gets blown away by the wind. And we don't even allow the grass to sort of grow up, because this grazing is a continuous activity. It is not as though that I will cut the grass one day and feed the cow, or the cow comes and eats, or the buffalo comes and eats, and next day it doesn't need. It is almost an everyday activity. So we don't give the time for the soil to sort of recuperate. And you may ask, why is it that this is happening now? Didn't we always have these animals with us that we really sort of pray to and the numbers were very, very small, and our ancestors were very smart. They would have a cyclical system. Today, you graze the cows and buffaloes in one place, they were taken to another lot in another location. They had the freedom of place, they had the freedom of lesser population to feed, so it was never an issue. But now the numbers are so huge, overgrazing sort of completely is destroying the soil, the grass cover. Then the most important one, which all of us today, just associate with soil erosion, is too much of fertilizer usage, too much of pesticide usage. Our land, which is giving us food, is being filled with just enormous quantity of fertilizers. So the soil sort of loses its own capability to sort of process its own minerals. There is no, even soil is a living, whether we don't call, I don't know, if technically we call it a living structure, but basically it's a living, breathing thing that also needs its own space to sort of recuperate, which we don't allow for. So excess of fertilizer and excess of pesticides, any chemicals that we are dumping in, and you cannot blame the farmers. At the end of it, they do need the produce, and countries that have tried to sort of take away this. We've seen the case of Sri Lanka, which sort of one of the reasons for the economic collapse was they tried to switch completely to organic overnight. So there are a lot of these interlinked issues. This is the most common one that we read in our newspapers every day when we talk about soil just losing its fertile nature is because of overpumping of chemicals. So we spoke about so many problems. What is it that we can do? I mean, when we talk about it's not just 1 kg of some material that we can quickly wash and keep it back, or some small thing that we can sort of address. So what is it that one can do to address this? Because there are no easy answers here. You stop the fertilizers, then the food production collapses. Can you stop mining? You cannot. Can we so anything that you sort of try to address, it comes back to the same thing. We cannot feed a population, and we do not have a control on how this is being the soil is being put to use. So again, scientists talk about really like technical stuff, soil washing, which is impossible. You can amend that, basically you add something to the soil to make it more nutrient filled again, which I'll come to in a minute about how this is being done. The physical technology is, can you really like sort of do something where you remove a particular layer of soil, refill with something else, and so on. Uh, Microbial remediation, you add microbial life back into the soil. And again, there are a lot of solutions around this. Basically, you fix the soil with even vermi remediation, is you put the earthworms and things like vermicompost and other things which will change. But these are all very theoretical. When it comes to everyday life, it's very difficult, a small farmer to sort of, go through this whole process. Will the mining companies stop mining? Will the coastal cities stop constructing? So it's easy to put these charts. Real action is very tough. So I'll just focus first on the agricultural side of things, right? I mean, what do you do to sort of stop this soil erosion? So there are a few techniques that the experts have put together, the farmers have learned along the way. So planting vegetation around the crops, not necessarily just the crop, you sort of use windbreakers. Mulching is basically you add some straw and other material around the plant so that there is no evaporation of water, and so the water will be retained. It also allows the microbial life to come back. So one big reason in why soil is so nutritious, again, I'll go back to the first slide. It has a lot of organic life, even if it is 5%. That organic life sort of gives, it's in the rhizosphere, and the amount of microorganisms that are there in that soil sort of help build all the different minerals that are needed by the plants. And that's the reason when you add earthworms or when you add other life into the soil, it sort of makes the soil more fertile. So mulching helps with that. Then you sort of somehow use you don't actually flatten the fields, but you follow the contour of the land. If it is somewhere slightly hilly, then you sort of terrace your plantations. You try to cut down the runoff water by using various mechanisms. So in Rajasthan, for example, there is a concept called, if most of you all can speak Hindi, it's called Adha Chand. So Adha Chand is, you don't make actually a pit for the soil, pit for the plant. You just cut 3/4 of it, like Adha, a half moon shape. And the direction of the sun is taken into consideration, so the water doesn't evaporate too quickly but stays in. It helps with water conservation and also protects the soil to a certain extent. So the implementing terracing, contouring, you sort of exclude the cattle out of your fields. And so these are some of the things that farmers already know. Very difficult to follow again. But one of the other big things is cover crops. What you mean by cover crops is usually we do monoplantations, whether it's where you're growing rice or you're growing wheat or tomatoes or whatever. So we just put one crop, a rubber plantation, and then we expect that the soil will hold up. So one of the ways to sort of cut the erosion is to use multiple crops or cover crops. When you let's say you're harvesting, you make sure that there is another crop there so that it holds on to the soil. And this is, again, our ancestors knew this very well. They would always use like chana or gram or something in between so that the new nitrogen cycle gets fixed. We lost all of that, or we have stopped to follow in the name of adding more fertilizers. And anyway, the produce is coming out high. At least it did initially. Now it is failing. Then there is a very controversial, what should I say, concept called no till or reduce the till. So basically, don't use these tractors to sort of plow, which goes against all our common sense or what we understand as farming. But scientists are saying that the more you do this, we're going to lose soil. It's a very, very questionable, what should I say, very controversial one. How do you actually farm if you don't till it? But in the name of soil conservation, this is something that has been suggested again, especially people with these really hundreds of acres of land, not so much in India, but in other places. Building check dams, bunding, small water conservation ponds inside the soil, inside the farms, to some extent sort of make sure that the water, even if it drains, it sort of stays within the farm, and then the moisture sort of goes back into the farm. So the multiples of these, and primarily we keep hearing about afforestation and reforestation. Wherever we have cut down the forest, bring back the trees into the count. So these are all various ways where, when it comes to the land where we are using for farming, or where the deforestation has taken place, the land is eroded. These are the suggested activities. Then to come to what I was talking about earlier here, cover crops. There is also something called as intercrops. So this is just a graphic to show this is how a forest works. It has a mix of big trees and then smaller shrubs and grass and rest of it. When you have rubber monoculture, or you take any monoculture, all this eucalyptus and whatever these big agroforestry things that are going on, if you don't have crops in between, or rather another type of smaller plant or a tree in between, it will not hold the soil. So this is something that has now moved away from monoculture plantation and try to do a mix and match of the sizes and what suits the soil there. Now I'm going into a completely different one. Till now we spoke about agriculture and growing stuff. There is another big issue where India sort of is also very big on mining. And again, with the news, you would have seen how dependent we are on coal today. Most of our 60% of our power supply comes from coal. Today, we take our electricity and the rest of it for granted, but we're mining coal to make sure that we have this power supply. Fossil fuels, of course, we import, and we all know what's happening today. So we can't stop mining. Until I think couple of decades ago, or even before that, we would just mine and leave those lands, and they're completely degraded now. And this run into a very, very big chunk of the land, although as compared to agriculture, it's much more smaller. So now there are policies in place where the people who are mining it are expected to leave the soil in a shape where it can grow back life. So till recently, we did not have these policies in place. Now, once the mining is done, the same people who mined it are expected to sort of put back the ecology in place. It may or may not thrive, it's another question, but at least we should try. So this is another type of land degradation or soil that is being lost. That's we're trying to do fixes. And globally, there are some new ways where the soil erosion and soil problems are there everywhere across the globe. So there is a concept called phytomining. You can see it here. So phytomining is basically wherever the soils have a lot of minerals or a lot of what should I say, everything that is mined. Now you finished mining, and now the soil has very little, so you can't actually just dig and take it. The quantity is very less. So what do you do then? It is not good for agriculture. The soil is still having these minerals. So you grow specific plants on this soil, which is happening in a big way in some of the European countries, and in a very, very small batches. But I just wanted to give you all a spread of what is happening across the globe. So these plants are then crushed and the minerals are extracted from that. It's a long process, but this is one way to sort of keep, I mean, it's not with the intention of keeping the soil in erosion in check, or desertified soil back. It is with the intent that you make money primarily, but it helps soil conservation, and that's the reason I added it here. So this is relatively a new approach, not too used in India. I don't think anyone is doing this, but this is something that's picking up across the globe. In terms of the coastal erosion check, and just to give you all a visual imagery of what happens, mangroves were once there through the coastline of India, be it in what you keep hearing about the mangrove in Mumbai specifically, and some in West Bengal. But at some point, our coastline had mangroves through the coastline, entire coastline. And once we removed mangroves, and mangroves are, if you'll have seen the pictures, they look like these really huge trees with the roots growing into the saline water. They're on the sea coast, they're on the river coast sometimes, where the brackish water mixes. These are the biggest carbon sinks in the world. And we've uprooted all of them, and we're continuously uprooting them. And when the mangroves are lost, if something like a tsunami or big waves hit, which is happening, it will just crash into the land. So we are losing the coastal land. Maybe today we talk about in centimeters and inches, but to a city, for example, in Chennai, which is lower than the coast, the sea level, the water will just drown the city. And so Tamil Nadu government has been very, very active in trying to sort of fix. They've been having issues with this downpour and the coastal belt getting eroded. So these are actually mangrove plantations. It's not a great picture, but I took it from a newspaper. So it's in black and white. But the forest officials have planted 20,000 mangrove saplings of 5 species along the Buckingham Canal near the Mahabalipuram road. So these fish fin type of things that you're seeing is where mangroves have been planted. It takes a very, very long time for mangroves to grow. And so now other states are also picking up. AP has put out a specific, I think they're also doing the mangrove plantation. So you plant now, then there is hope for maybe, in 20 years or so, it'll start to show results. I mean, even the young mangroves help, but you really need these in place to make sure that the coastal line is sort of protected. I am jumping a little bit here. My slides got mixed up. Sorry about that. But I just want to go back to the fertilizer misuse. So the fertilizers that we buy today are high on ammonia, which is basically nitrogen, and that is sort of giving us a bigger produce. If you didn't add fertilizers, maybe let's say 1 acre would give us 1 sack of rice, and you add fertilizer, now it's become 3 sacks, and hence we're able to feed the entire population. When you remove fertilizers, what is it that you can replace with? So India today is using, at least most of the farmers have begun to look at Jivamrut. And this again goes back to the way our ancestors used to do this, where cow dung is mixed with good soil, again with chickpea flour, sometimes jaggery, and then cow urine. And they leave it in a container to ferment. And this is sort of then, if they're using drip irrigation, they're actually sending this periodically into the fields. If they're not, then it's sort of used in the water that is sprayed, or in the irrigation channels that they sort of send the water to. So this is working out very, very well. And so much so that now we're also exporting cow dung and cow urine, I think. So this is a natural way, but to scale up is very difficult. But at least there is a trial, and these alternates have begun to be used. Similarly, there is another remediation which is not very well heard of or not popular in the common media. It's called biochar. Now, biochar in our language, it's not charcoal, but it is like charcoal. If you burn organic matter, let's say burnt wood or so, in a controlled process where you don't actually allow it's called pyrolysis. You can read up on it. The output is like, it looks like charcoal, but the technical word is biochar. And this biochar is working out to be a very, very good remediation for the soil. Not all types, but again, what it does is, you all know how charcoal feels like, right? It's very, very light, it's very airy, it's very porous. Now, when you put this into the soil, it makes the soil absolutely absorbent so that it can soak in the water. Then it also gives a nice home to the microorganisms. It sort of activated biochar sort of helps more microorganisms build into the soil. And when it does that, the soil automatically becomes fertile. So biochar is something across the globe people are now sort of focusing on. In our country, there is a lot of research going on. People are using biochar. And I personally think if this sort of taken very seriously, then you should have units everywhere across the fields, where instead of people burning up the farms, leading to issues like you see in Delhi, where in December it's all fog and smog and asthma issues, and AQI shoots up because people are burning up the fields. Instead of that, if you do it in a protected setup where you work on a pyrolysis process, it will turn to biochar. And when you add this biochar, your soil will automatically become fertile. And of course, I'm just sort of doing a very sweeping statement here. Biochar, activated biochar, needs to be used carefully. Excess, again, could cause issues. The types of biochar vary. But this is something that I think if you sort of look at it in a circular economy, you can sort of move people to make money on burning their, the farm leftover plants, and sort of also make their soil fertile. This needs a lot of focus, which is happening. Again, a lot of research needs to happen. I work for Dharmavana. We also work on a project where we're looking at bamboo biochar. So this is one of the remediation processes. I'm not running you all through the image, but broadly the logic is that it will allow the soil to absorb more water. It will allow micronutrients to, microbial life to sort of thrive. So that's the story behind biochar. Then there is another, a little controversial, but this is something that is picking up across, and there are a couple of startups even in India doing this. It is called enhanced rock weathering. So the background to this is, like I said earlier, we did not have soil on Earth. We had rocks. And then when organic matter came in, and this process took millions of years, and we have soil. So to a smaller extent, I'm generalizing here. I hope there are no experts on ERW. They'll laugh at this. But basically, you take rock, like for example, basalt rock. In Deccan, you find a lot of that. You powder it, and then you put it on the fields. And what this does actually is more like it allows, one of the activity that it results in is it will help the nutrients from the rock improve the soil health and crop yield, one of the many advantages. It also does other things where we believe it addresses climate change. And there are some startups that have signed up with the likes of Microsoft and others to give carbon credits in the name of doing ERW. And they're doing a lot of work in Chhattisgarh. They're doing work in Darjeeling, tea estates, and so on. So this is another process where you add something to the soil to make it more nutritious, just like biochar, but this is completely a different technique. And it does a whole lot of other things for climate change. One of the advantages is the soil becomes a little more fertile. India also has done, as a policy, as a government, it's looking into this very, very fast, very soon. In September 2025, the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences released a paper talking about restoration and improvement of soil health. It's a very long paper, but primarily it all goes back to the common sense. Do not dump too much fertilizer, pesticide into it, do all the erosion checks, and so on. And also the state governments are doing multiple things. So Sikkim, I think most of you will know, it is the first organic state in the world, not just India. So as a state, they do not allow any chemical to enter into their soil. It is a small state. It has also got one of the highest GDPs, thanks to both tourism and also the organic produce that they're doing. Their politicians and policymakers were very serious about this a decade ago. And today it's the state where there's no plastic on the street. Of course, their citizens are much more engaged and deviating, but primarily the state is showing us the path. They've stopped putting any chemical into the soil. Then we also have the young state, or the Andhra Pradesh, not the young but separated state, Andhra Pradesh. So here they're doing an concept called it's Andhra Pradesh Community Managed Natural Farming. So it's APCNF, where the government, Chandrababu Naidu's government especially, is pushing forward with this. There is slow adoption. It will bring down the yield in the first few years, but most of the farmers, or maybe some of the farmers, are showing interest and they're pursuing this. As the word says, natural farming, it's basically do not put any pesticides, do not put any fertilizers into the soil. It is different from organic. Don't ask me how. Again, a lot of technicalities, but basically, I just wanted to show that individual states are also taking this leap forward. We realize that the amount of cancer that we are seeing in human beings, the soil erosion, again, because that's the topic. So these are some of the solutions that seem to be working, and this is a long way to go, but these are just the beginnings. Across the globe, there is another completely a new topic that I'm picking here. Desertification is a very, very serious problem. In India, we are thinking about how we feed our nation. In other countries, it's a question of survival. So under UN, there is a separate unit called United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. And so they have their own COP, that's a conference of parties every year, where they discuss this. They look at how you solve this globally, because from UNCCD's approach, what is happening is all the existing deserts that are there across the globe are sort of expanding. So basically, they will eat into the fertile soil. If the desert expands, it will touch the soil where you're actually producing your food. So how do you stop that? How do you stop expansion of this desertification process? So this is like I said, it's a UN initiative, very, very active in the space. So I'll jump to what is it that other people are doing, right? What are the citizens doing? What are some of the global initiatives that seem to be showing us the path? And I'm not talking about generally the agriculture, but overall desertification. So in Africa, I mean, think of the size of the continent of Africa. This is like, I don't know which size of continent, but you know how big it is. So across the north part of Africa, this whole yellow line that you see here, northwards is all desert, except for a bit of Morocco here. It's all desert. It's the Sahara Desert. And so now the African nations, all of these, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, Chad, Nigeria, Mali, all of these are sort of putting up what they call as the green wall. I'm sorry, what? Yeah. So they're putting up what is called as the Great Green Wall Initiative. And so all the nonprofits, citizens, everyone comes together. It's a as you can see, the scale is so massive. They're trying to do plantation here. When I use the word plantation, let me say, okay, it's afforestation. on the border of the desert, so that it works as a windbreaker, and then the desert sort of doesn't stretch into the fertile lands. And this is a massive effort, takes billions of dollars, takes millions of citizens to be active in this. Can you think of the size of this project? So it's called the Great Wall of Africa. And again, only time will tell us whether this is working or not, but they're beginning to see the initial success rates. You can look up on YouTube. All you need to see is the Green Wall of Africa, and you'll find the results. And this is not just, this is a continent initiative. Then Brazil, it's one of the largest nations, of course, in terms of size. It is also the soya bean capital of the world. Soya bean is the biggest food for cattle. And so their farms are being taken away by soybean corporate, growing soybean. And of course, it's home to Amazon. And we all keep talking about Amazon, as the lungs of the earth and so on. So right next to Amazon, there is a place called Cerrado, this place in yellow. Here, what some NGOs are doing is, because the land is being occupied by so much of monoculture and farming, there's the river that runs through this. On both sides, they're sort of putting up afforestation along the banks of the river. It's almost like, I think, 500 miles of land or even longer than that. Again, initiative led by citizens, a mix of NGOs, policymakers support it. If this sort of isn't taken care of, slowly Amazon forest will also be felled for the growing, crop requirements. So this is again a very, very huge initiative. You can look up on what's happening in Cerrado afforestation, and you'll be able to see all of them. Again, when we talk about afforestation, it doesn't necessarily mean that you go and put these big trees. It also could be the grasslands need to revive. You just leave the land as is, let it grow what it needs to grow, without putting something else, without stopping the water from flowing, so you just need the land to regenerate. And this is a great example of that. They're doing a mix of both, for afforestation and leaving the land as is. The biggest and the massive and the biggest size of the project across the globe is the Great Green Wall of China. I'm not talking about the Great Wall of China. This is the Great Green Wall of China. And again, not too commonly seen in our media, but this is China map, the gray one that you see here. As I was saying in my earlier slides, people on the the east coast of China is where 90% of the people stay, and the entire rest of China is only just 10%. Why? Because it's all desert. So what happens is Beijing, which is the capital city of China, is somewhere here, where you see my cursor. Now, there is a huge amount of sand that blows in. There's a desertification that's happening right at the border of their livable spaces. So back in 2001, their policymakers said they're going to do this huge effort on afforestation, like a 40-year program. And this map is, of course, only showing you till 2020, but this will go on till 2040. And they've done a mix of experiments. I mean, any learning that you want to see in massive afforestation scale, what works, what doesn't work, China has tried it. They've left rabbits in the deserts. They've planted sort of hay into the desert. They've left, I think, foxes, if I'm not wrong. So they've done multiple things. They've also done a mix of monoculture afforestation. And the learning was that if you just do one or two species, if there is any spread of disease, it will collapse. So then they started doing a mix of species. And so this whole green space that you see is actually a desert which they're trying to fill with forest. If you actually watch the videos, it's almost like I would say half of Europe or something like that. You're trying to actually build forests. So that's the scale of this project. But they want to do it because the desert otherwise will occupy their land. That is actually feeding the 90% of their population, or the 100% of the population. And what's the size of China's population? It's just after India. So this is they've been trying to teach this to the Middle East. They've been trying to share all their learnings. It's a very, very massive program. But it's a mix of, again, policy, a lot of the NGOs that joined in, a lot of the citizens that joined in. and they document what is working and what is not working very, very well. So coming to India, we have the Aravali range. We also have a project that's called Aravali Green Wall Project. And so this green line that you see stretching from the, I don't know if you all can see this, but Gujarat all the way till I think Haryana or so, or till it touches Delhi. They're trying to do this massive green afforestation program. Again, all of these are something that we're trying to understand whether it works or not, how long will it take, is it really effective, but we have to keep trying. So these are the really large scale programs that are going on. So I think I've been doing a monologue here. I hope I've used the time well. So the closing remarks that I would like to make here is that there are no easy answers, but we do know that if this soil erosion is not checked, it is not taken care of, then our food systems will collapse. I'm purely talking about human beings here. Our food systems, drinking water, which is already happening, it's happening. Basically, there is no scope for humanity to continue. Forget about climate change. Right here on Earth, we are doing things which don't make sense. And even when people are talking about moving to another planet, the first thing that they need to actually address is what are they going to do to the soil, because it's not going to support food. Are you going to ship? You're going to send people in space rockets to Mars or Moon or wherever you want life to thrive. You can't actually keep shipping food, right? And so you want to grow stuff there. And so one of the recent experiments was the chickpea, what we call as basin or senagapindi in Telugu, or the chickpeas. Those are the first crop that they're trying. So soil not just on Earth, but on other planets too, it's completely under focus. There are just no easy answers, but because we know that it is an issue, we will have to continue to look for answers. So as the team was sharing, I had a nonprofit called Dharmavana Nature Ark. This is based in Hyderabad. And here we work on biodiversity conservation, primarily safeguarding the Deccan species, primarily the forest species in a 400-acre land close to Hyderabad. So these are pictures of our 400 acres each year in different seasons. It was completely barren when the project started. And now we have a green patch, and we don't actually worry about a green color as in number of trees, but it's just that the soil has rejuvenated. And sometimes just stopping grazing, putting in some basic concepts of water conservation goes a long, long way, and stopping all the chemicals. So I'll pause here. And so this is my full name, just in case anyone wants to reach out to me. I've not added my number here, but I think we can go on to the question session. I hope I'm good with the time. Yeah, on dot. Okay. Pratyusha?
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm right here, ma'am. Thank you so much for the presentation. And before we move on to the Q&A, I'd like to just take 30 seconds of everyone's time for a quick poll. This will help us get to know you better and tailor future topics that we bring to you. While you fill out the poll, I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speaker, Ms. Sharda Kalawapudi, for sharing her valuable time and insights with us. While you fill out the poll, I request all of the participants to reply to the poll questions quickly. While you fill out the poll, I'd like to cover the key points ma'am covered, and I hope I do justice to it. First was history and formation of soil. Earth formed 4.543 billion years ago without soil. Soil, as we know, it only formed 500 million years ago, 10% of Earth's history. Takes 500 to 1,000 years to form. Just 1-2 centimeters of topsoil takes about 500 to 1,000 years to form. Soil composition is 45% minerals, 25% air, 25% water, with 5% organic matter. 2. Why soil matters. One spoonful of healthy soil contains more life than all of humanity. Provides nutrients for food systems, holds water, and prevents flooding. Biggest carbon sink for climate regulation. Without soil, no food, no water, no life. Third was India's unique position. 50% of world's population lives in UC circle. India, China, Southeast Asia. India has historically held 25% of world's population due to fertile soil, blessed with multiple soil types and rivers, has 689,000 acres of agricultural land, less than China's 2 million plus. Fourth was the major soil problems we face: desertification, 30% of India's land affected; soil erosion caused by water runoff and wind when land lacks vegetation cover; coastal erosion, India's coastline eroding due to construction and mangrove loss; illegal sand mining from riverbeds for construction; overgrazing, too many cattle destroying grass cover; chemical overuse, excessive fertilizers and pesticides depleting soil health. Fifth was solutions being implemented: agricultural practices, planting vegetation around crops as windbreakers, mulching to retain water, terracing and contouring on slopes, cover crops and intercropping, mixing different plants, reduced tilling, building check dams and water conservation ponds. Ma'am also mentioned about some remediation technologies like Jivamrut, which are natural. I hope I was able to cover uh, that in a short bit. While okay, before we just move on to the Q&A, I'd like to just quickly mention about the upcoming talks that we're going to have next week so that you can register. Um, Shaping futures beyond the classroom, how extracurricular activities build confidence, creativity, and leadership. The speaker is Joel Datta, founder and president of the Fortuny Trust. She's speaking on 20th March 2026, 11 a.m. onwards. Post that, we have GN Padmaja, who's an environment evangelist. She's going to be talking about smart mobility, sustainable tomorrow, powering a low carbon future. This is on 18th April 2026. With that, we can now commence the Q&A session. I'd like to first unmute Mr. Shmuel.
Okay, so I have to be honest, I'm no expert. I will try my best to answer, but if I can't, I will at least guide you all to places that you can read up about it.
Mr. Shmuel, could you please ask
You
your
hear
question?
me?
Yes.
You hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I want, yes, very, very interesting presentation. And I want can support resolution problems of poverty and social inequality.
Sir, could you please repeat your question? We lost a little bit of the question there in the start.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask how protecting on soil can support resolution problems of poverty and social and economic inequality.
How protecting soil can resolve problems of poverty and social inequality.
Yeah, so if you can make the soil more fertile, and let's say an average farmer in India, especially, more than 75% of the population is dependent on agriculture as a means of income. If we can really increase the soil fertility, which means that the produce will be higher, and stop soil erosion to a large extent, stop the drought issues that we're seeing, automatically the average income of a farmer will go up. So we've seen cases of, for example, in Nasik, there is an FPO by the name called Sayadri. All the small farmers have come together. They made sure that their soil is sort of taken care of course, with the aim of getting a bigger produce and better market out there. But the farmers' income sort of quadrupled or increased drastically. So the first step is soil fertility to be increased, and then of course a lot of other things need to happen. Market has to be there, the pricing of the products and so on. So soil can play a very, very important role in making sure that the farmer's income goes up. Both soil and water are tightly coupled here. If there is water availability and soil fertility addressed, we can really see the average income of a farmer in India shoot up. And because the
Yeah,
average income goes up, inequality will, to a certain extent, be sort of taken care of.
yeah, thank you very much. And I have another short question. I want to ask you what, according to your opinion, role of community in effective protecting on soil?
Role of communities in effective
How
protection of
community?
So sorry, sir, can you say that again?
what role can communities play to
Yeah.
protect?
So as I was sharing, FPOs, which I think it's food processing organizations, I'm not sure of the full form, but it's called FPO in India. These are all communities that have come together as societies. Amul is a very good example, which focuses on milk. But similarly, now you have more FPOs coming up for agricultural produce. Sayadri in Maharashtra is a very good example. The community came together and they decided that, okay, we are not going to put up with this drought issue. And today they are the biggest suppliers of vegetables through to all the supermarkets across the country. So the communities came together to fight this. In India, one of the big issues is that we have small farmland. So each farmer may hold half acre, 1 acre, 2 acres, unlike in the other countries where a single farm could be easily mechanized because there are 100 acres of land. A machine can sort of take care of it. When you have one acre and 2 acres, you cannot keep buying those machines and they may not even make sense. So communities coming together is the answer. And the more education that you sort of share, and what you're seeing now is the younger generation in the villages are coming together to understand from using YouTube or other sources of information to figure out how to do this, because they're seeing other communities coming together. So it sort of will have a ripple effect, and hopefully more and more communities come together to do this. So it's certainly something that will really grow from the soil, from the roots.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shmuel. I'd like to now unmute Mr. Vasan Kumar. Sir, could you please unmute yourself and ask your question? Yes.
Hello, namaste.
Namaste, sir.
Sharda madam, it was a wonderful experience for me. I'm a farmer
Yes, sir.
and I've been concentrating on Miyawaki type of forest creation.
Okay, sir.
That's one thing. And also I'm an anti-tobacco activist. You
Okay.
mentioned about Brazil, ma'am, and
Yes,
you talked about soybeans.
Yes,
But Brazil is the capital of tobacco
yes, yes,
growing,
yes.
and it is utilizing its maximum fertile land to grow tobacco,
Yes, sir.
which
Both
is a
tobacco.
poisonous plant.
Yes,
In India also, Mysore, I am in Mysore. Yeah, Mysore belt has FCB and Burley type of tobacco. In Andhra Pradesh also, Guntur grows a lot of
yes, sir.
FCB, and they are all using fertile lands to grow poisonous crop.
Yes, sir.
Is it fair on the part of the policymakers also to allow such a poisonous crop to grow?
Sir, I did not
What
add that in the presentation, but using the wrong crop is also one of the big issues. It's a very not a nice statement to make. I'm from Telangana now. I'm staying in Hyderabad. Telangana is a very semi-arid dry state. This was not meant for rice, but today it is the biggest rice producer or contributor to India. You can't say it's right or wrong, but the soil was not meant for rice. But today we are irrigating, dumping so much more water into it to make sure that it grows rice. So it is basically you're spending that much more power to bring in water, lift irrigation, and then making sure that you're raising a crop that is not millets, which is meant for this dry land, but you're using for rice. So some of the times you cannot actually say what is right or wrong, because at the end of it, the farmer needs to make their income. And if someone tells them that with the tobacco or rice, they're going to make more money, who are you and me to say, oh, it is
it's
bad
not
for
like that.
soil?
I'm a farmer.
Yes, sir.
I know
Yes,
what
sir.
to grow and what not to grow.
Yes, sir.
I'm being tempted with all kinds of loans
Yeah.
by government. Subsidies are also being given to tobacco farmers.
Yes, sir.
And
Same thing with palm trees.
Once the tobacco grows, and you cannot grow any other plant on that.
Yes, sir.
Again, you will have to go back to mulching and all those things. And then again to rejuvenate the soil.
Yes, sir.
Second thing you mentioned about growing of desertification.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I have a suggestion. I don't know whether I can take liberty to talk
Yes,
about
please,
it.
sir. Yes.
See, we will have to necessarily rejuvenate the soil. And nearly half a meter of desert is growing into Ran of Kutch and other places where
Yes.
people are living. And there are a number of kajri trees,
Yes, sir.
which are the best possible trees that can grow and rejuvenate that area.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, we have a problem of sewage in most megacities,
Yes, sir.
right? And then whether it is possible to load that extra from the STP, that is sewage treatment plants, load them onto empty trucks, just like petrol tanks, and then take them all the way to the desert areas. And then while moving around, it gets properly mixed.
Yes,
And
sir.
also we can put some red soil into the thing, and also some seeds that
Yes,
are
sir.
growable in desert areas.
Desert areas. Yes,
So
sir.
once you reach the desert area, border areas, you can empty these things throughout. Similarly, if we have railway facility, a goods wagon containing hundreds of wagons with this sewage, which is a nuisance to city areas, urban areas, we will have to necessarily see that we can recoup our desert areas with at least these kind of problem solving. One is rejuvenating the soil, the other one is solving the problem of sewage of cities.
Yes, sir.
These are some of the things. And somehow I feel that policymakers are playing double standards in controlling tobacco. It is not fair on their part.
Yes, sir.
They should not pinch the child and sing lullaby.
Yes.
And what is it you are getting? Some 12,000 crores of foreign exchange, and you are spending more than 1 lakh crore for
Sir,
treating
I
people.
request you to kindly allow
I know,
other
sir.
participants to
I
ask
know,
the
sir.
question.
I know.
I don't want this to be a rant session, sir. Please.
No, anyway,
No.
you in my mind.
I
hope it will be.
I agree
We are
with
aligned with
everything.
how you think, sir. We completely
Okay.
are aligned
And
with
by the
how
way,
you
I
think.
So
just
I'll
want to
just
mention.
add to what sir was sharing. See, sometimes policymakers have their own constraints. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but for example, we did not have palm oil coming in during COVID. Now we have a new policy where farmers are being asked to put in more palm oil trees into the ground, and we have huge palm plantations coming up now. On one hand, people are telling us palm oil is very bad for health. On the other hand, we do need it for cooking. We are importing in big numbers. So sometimes policies, like sir is saying, is it right or wrong? We don't know.
We know it is wrong.
Yes.
Policymakers also know
So
it is wrong.
kindly do not interrupt the speaker,
No,
sir,
it is
please.
okay. I agree with you, sir. I hope we have answers, but your solution, I've made a note. I understand that waste from one place can become actually gold for stopping the desert. Yes, sir.
No, I just want to say, Lara, I'm missing Shivani ji. Where is she?
Sir, she's not joined in today. Her father passed away recently.
So sorry.
Kindly,
Okay.
kindly let the other participants. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Sir is a regular participant of ours and he's very strongly advocating against tobacco. And I'd like to now unmute Mr. Satish Babu so that we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. My strong opinion is only cattle will be regenerated the soil. No, the soil, cattle, soil, environment, and human health. This is the tagline. So we are all dependent for every source. We are dependent on cattle. So second one is water regeneration, water harvesting. Yeah, whenever the cattle wanders on some particular space, when they drops the dung on the soil, and it makes some pores. Whenever it rains, the water will travel to that force to 15 feet below the ground level.
Yes.
Rest at the 15 feet ground level. And whenever the plant needs the water, through percolation, through vapor, and it will come back to the root of the soil, root of the plant.
Yes.
This is the system. This is the what we call this. We know we practically we have done all these things. And in your presentation, you told that organic carbon. Yeah, throughout the world, this is the most worst experience that organic carbon holds the water. It's never it happens. If it suns, organic carbon will comes down. If it rains more, also it will comes down. If we plant some crop, then after that it immediately will comes down. Organic matter percentage of organic matter comes down. Why all you people will always quote that OC will hold the water more? It's clearly it's an upset. You just all these needs some scientific research again.
Yes, sir.
And third one is you have specially quoted that Jivamruta, all these we have collected from dung, some urine jaggery and all these. No? Where you are collecting this dung? From which cattle you are collecting this dung? And that cattle should be, biological conditions should be properly maintained. And that cattle should be left from morning to evening for graze at its own will and pleasure. Not keeping, all time keeping them in the shed and we giving the whatever we available material giving to them. So when we are giving the material to them, they will lose the sense. When you are collecting the material, the dung and urine from that senseless cow or buffalo, it makes us senseless. No, there should be lot of scientific should be done on this now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just, from where I've presented this, these are some of the options. Like even when I was talking about biochar, I kept saying how much, where, what type of biochar, all of this scientists are sort of putting together. It is one of the things that is being tested. And even cattle grazing, sir, with all the scientific material that is available, yes, in small numbers, obviously when cattle grows, it goes around and there is manure, it is already being absorbed into the soil. And this is how even our ancestors sort of made sure that the land is fertile. I clearly said it's overgrazing. So because the numbers are increasing and because then we are letting these animals graze excessively. And today we don't have control. Again, there is no right or wrong here. We do need milk, we do need dairy. So where is it going to come from? So it is just that the concept of overgrazing is making sure that the land stays clean of any grass or nothing will again grow there because the grazing is going on. So points very well taken, sir. But to your question, biochar is being extensively sort of researched on. There are people sort of measuring, is it really helping, not helping? But as of now, it is considered as one of the many solutions, again, with a lot of ifs and buts.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, moving on to the next question from Mr. Prasad Sarpanjani. Hello, sir.
Yeah, good morning. It was an excellent presentation, and yeah, good morning to all of you. And it was an excellent presentation, and I think very comprehensive, considering the time that you have allotted for less than an hour to madam. So one question is cultivation, a paddy field or wheat, whatever, which has been being cultivated with the help of this fertilizers, be it urea or whatever, in the conventional way. If you want to transform, how long would it take to transform such a farmland when you start using purely natural grazing, like let's say cattle-based grazing or with a mix of organic fertilizers? How many years would it take? My assumption is the land which you have been giving your contributed, that 400 acre Dharma whatever.
Dharmavana.
That is a Dharmanam. I am assuming it must have been more or less a barren land,
Yes.
which is probably I would know, which is probably uncultivated. Maybe
Yes.
that is a less. I am assuming it could be lesser of a challenge rather than a land which has been used to being
Yes, sir.
subject to for artificial, this synthetic fertilizers or
Yes,
whatever
sir.
is the right word.
Yes, sir.
That's one thing. So my question is, how many? Is it possible to transform the land? Because and just here, if we take our friend Mr. Satish Gadde, who was here. In fact, he was expressing his views very strongly. That because I know him, so I can say that he's practicing what many have been preaching. He has been practicing for the last 100 plus years, which is a fourth generation farmer. That's why I could appreciate the way in which he is so
Yes.
strongly advocating. That's one thing. And the other thing which I put in the chat box was um, you have been talking about cow dung. Maybe just mentioned this cow dung, whereas the gentleman is using buffaloes.
So that,
Predominantly,
yes, language is.
No. That's fine, fine. I wanted to know whether cow dung has got inherently certain essential nutrient value vis-a-vis the buffalo dung. Otherwise, it's both the same. It's no issue. This one, yeah.
Sir, actually, I mean, if I give any specific answers, I will be cheating. So I'm no scientist, I'm no ecologist, but just this is generic information, again, questionable to more further research. The soil to sort of rejuvenate for Dharmavana especially, I think it took almost like a decade. And like you said, it was not a farmed land, it was just degraded land. By just stopping, any cattle or any further fertilizer addition, I would say it took a decade. But when you're talking about having synthetic fertilizers in the soil, how long will it take to sort of revive again? It depends on the amount of fertilizers, but usually 5-6 years is a given. It will not happen overnight. And that's why people are watching the program in Andhra Pradesh with such a close eye, because there are people who are saying it will never work. There are people who are saying it will work. But everyone knows that the first few years, the produce will fall down drastically. Are the farmers ready for it? Is it even fair? AP program is being reviewed. There are both takers and people who are dissing on it. But it is something in the right direction. Now, if the farmers are suffering, will the government sort of help them because they're using this method? All of these are very, very big questions, sir. And we're actually talking about specific farmers' livelihood here.
Yes.
We can all have very sweeping solutions. At the end of it, the farmer who has to feed his family has to make a decision. So we cannot take that on their behalf.
Yeah, I do appreciate what you said. A very honest way of you put it, because people also should have the patience, and the tolerance to wait for a few years to see the results and then scale up the whole thing. I understand.
Yes.
And I was just wondering whether cow dung has got some nutrients which are not there in the buffalo dung.
I'll look up and send you the answer. So today I don't have an answer.
And other reason is buffaloes, as you're aware, in south we are more used to buffaloes rather than in the north is more of cows probably. Yes, you can correct me if I'm wrong. That's all. Thank you so much. No, but one wonderful thing I can only say is this session actually is not about right or wrong. You have really given so much of wonderful inputs which are thought provoking. It makes everybody think and take things further. So we will we'll stay connected, madam. Thanks to Vishwa Foundation also. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, sir.
Welcome.
Now I'm going to unmute Mr. Abhishek Bhagat. The next question. So kindly unmute, sir.
Yeah. Am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Madam, first of all, thanks a lot for this wonderful presentation. What I would like to ask is that the first person to ask you the question, to have an interaction with you, talked about the indigenous community, to be precise, the indigenous community, and you told that the communities which are producing the things. So I will rather asking on a different note that the ensuring of the rights of the indigenous community, particularly the people who are living in the proximity of the forest, that ensures a lot for the overall case of fighting climate change and biodiversity laws, and eventually the aspects which we are facing right now in terms of the natural resources, the climate and everything. So in India, we don't find that much of respect or that much of credentials to be given to the indigenous communities and to ensure their dwellings and their rights So that remains an important matter of concern. And that apart, I will be talking about the biodiversity, in which pangolin holds a significant place, because this is an animal which feeds on the termites or the insects which are damaging the. Hello, madam.
Anteater, pangolin. Sorry.
Yeah, the pangolin is an animal which is feeding, which basically its diet is on the insects which are destroying the lands, which are destroying the soil. So to ensure their protection, the food security will be coming up eventually, because the more you secure the land, of course the food security matter is concerned. And the next thing is that I'll be talking about the utilization of the local produces, using the local resources. That remains a matter of concern. So how these things are being coped up in the concern to the subcontinent, particularly in India. And another thing is that to fight against the misuse of the natural resources, like there are companies which are corporates which are using the local natural resources, particularly for the concern of the water. The companies are digging out the entire water from the places, and that remains a matter of concern. The conversion of the wetlands into palm lands, as you talked about, the deforestation, and the palm lands are coming up eventually for the cases of production of the palm oil. So these things are the matter of concern, which I thought that I'll be raising it to you, because I'm working on the areas of wildlife crime control. So I felt like to share these things with you. And if you can hint on something like this to further add on. Thank
Sure,
you.
sir. So, sir, every state has so at national level, we have a National Biodiversity Authority, whom
Of
today
course.
Dharmavana works with. And also we have state biodiversity boards. So together, now they're working on a concept, or it is something that has globally been signed off, and India is slowly, at least in the last 1 year, they've been very active. It is called ABS, Acts and Benefit
Benefit
Sharing.
sharing.
So in the last 1 year, I won't say huge amounts, but they're trying to give back to the community from where this particular biomaterial has been taken and commercialized. So there are now rules in place, and the state biodiversity boards, obviously in the beginning, it's very difficult to sort of execute these at scale, but they're slowly picking it up, and it is going in the right direction. Can more be done? Yes. But have they started? Also, yes. So ABS is something that I think will bring this change, where the local communities are respected from where, or basically commercially benefited with this approach. That is one. Second one, you mentioned about local produce. So I want to draw your attention to Mahua. You have seen a lot of these social media reels talking about Mahua laddus and Mahua produce and so on. So there are a lot of products that are there which indigenous communities use, who stay close to the forest. Now slowly the government is trying to see how can you do it in such a way where you're not overdoing it, but at the same time benefit the local community commercially.
Exactly.
So Mahua is a very good example. Similarly, in Tamil Nadu, what they've done is there is a weed called lantana. Lantana is a weed that is seen in forests quite a bit across the country. It is not local to India, but brought in centuries ago, or maybe years ago. Today, the Tamil Nadu government is working with the tribals in Shola forest, where they pick the lantana and they're using that lantana for making furniture. So in New York and UN offices, you will see these wooden elephants that are there everywhere, given by India, but they're made of lantana wood. So sometimes if you try to make the weed go away on its own, it will not go. But if you commercialize it and you give a livelihood, there are chances. So these two examples come to my mind right now. Similarly, in the
Just like the
Northeast,
case of Shola, the Shola thing, which is indigenously being used in West Bengal, and thermocol has taken a replacement of that thing, the Shola. It is a wheat found in the rice cultivable areas, but it is of immense concern. It is of immense concern for the livelihoods of the local people, the indigenous communities, the associated heritage art with that thing, and for the eco-friendly perspective of using the Shola products. So
not
that
Shola
means,
products, sir. Lantana that is found in the Shola forest in Tamil Nadu.
exactly.
Not Shola products as such. So these two examples come to my mind, but we need to do many more. But these are just the beginning of something that we're seeing in the right direction. And ABS as a policy, access and benefit sharing. Now, this is a globally accepted one, but across the globe, it's very difficult to sort of implement it. But we are doing our best. So state biodiversity boards are very open to communication, and anything that you think that needs to be taken to their consideration, they're always open for.
Madam, I would like to suggest one thing. If you are working directly with the indigenous communities, pangolin is an animal which is found extensively throughout India, in various places. Like
We
pangolin,
actually in Dharmavana do not have one. There used to be one earlier, now it's gone. But it's also
yeah.
a very protected animal, so we cannot relocate them or do any of that. It's the
No,
directly
no, I'm
under
not
the
talking
forest.
about the illegal. I'm talking about their particular protection and the
Yes.
habitats.
Yes.
So they are the animal which are poached, which are smuggled in maximum numbers all throughout the world, in maximum numbers. So
Yes.
that remains an important matter of conservation for the sustainability of the soil.
Yes.
And another thing is that the nilgai that is being extensively killed in parts of eastern, central, and western India because they are thought to be as a vermin or a pest for the croplands.
Yes.
So that this remains a matter of concern, but they are soil doctors because their droppings are important for the nutrient conservation of the soil.
Yes.
So these are the aspects. So I would like to talk about these things. I would like to suggest about these things. My observations are like that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Abhishek, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, thank you, madam.
Ma'am, before I move on to the next question, what do you think about the next question is for me. What do you think about the super hyper materialistic urbanization that's basically called development in today's date? And what is your opinion on it?
In my presentation, I didn't touch on urban. Actually, even in urban areas, the soil, I want to specifically talk about soil. We are laying roads or we are not leaving any space that is uncemented. So basically, there is no place for water to be absorbed into the soil. It runs away, then it enters the gutters, and from there it has now become sewage. So there are activities like, for example, HMDA now is working with some non-profits to see how do you sort of safeguard rainwater before it flows away and can it turn to drinking water. So there are very small activities. We've woken up now, very late, but there is something being done on that end. To your question specifically, there is no way that you can stop urbanization. See, sooner or later, they say 60% of the world's population will be in cities. And it is not something that can be undone. It's like once you invent a wheel, you can't go back. And wherever there is prosperity, wherever there are opportunities, people will flood there. Can we make our cities more, a very broad word to say sustainable, and always nice? It's very difficult. City states like Singapore have successfully done that. Singapore being a very, very small country with absolutely zero water resources. Fresh water is almost like zero. They are doing a wonderful job. So there is, when you see someone doing it, there is hope. The new city that's being built, Amravati, at least the plans say that they're going in the sustainable path where everything will be taken care of, right from water conservation to how do you heat the cool down the buildings and so on. So when you see these examples, they should be the guiding light, but it is not easy for an existing city to morph itself and change overnight.
But what I really wanted to ask is, like, we've seen the goof ups by China in terms of ecology environment. We've seen goof ups by USA, Europe, and we've always looked up to them and followed them in a certain way after a few years. And while we learn from their mistakes, we are still following the same methods to mess the environment
if you
up.
speak to city planners, right, there is a concept,
Right.
and maybe we'll be deviating from the point, but there is a Greece way, which is you say, this is my history and I'll stay wherever I am, and I become a tourist spot. Okay, that's where Greece is. Then you have the Shenzhen style, which is the Chinese style. You put the latest tech and build skyscrapers and then make it the hub for commercial activity. That's the Shenzhen style. There's another one which no one broadly don't speak, is the Oman or the Muscat style. I shouldn't say style, but the approach. They're rich, they're extremely rich country, but they have remained as a city that has the latest tech to help the citizens and their soil and their communities. They don't put up these skyscrapers. They don't do all of this fancy stuff. They've remained within their architects, styling and so on, but they've adopted the latest tech. So that's another way to look at it. it's when you're planning a new city, it is easy to sit here in an armchair and say, oh, do it this way, and maybe someone will listen to it. But that is not the challenge. Hopefully, the people who are making these new cities will think like that. What do you do with the existing cities that have already grown and in size, and they're already supporting so many people? Can you change? It's like turning a very, very big war machine in angle. It's like, I don't know if that's analogy is right. War is on top of my mind, but you get the idea. So it's not so much as in new cities, but the existing ones to sort of adopt all these. And in Hyderabad, for example, it's a good example to share, not the best, but I'm just saying you have this Harita Haram project, which is now, I think, called Vasanta. I forget the latest name. They've done this whole green belt around the outer ring road. Was it done the right way is always questionable, but they did it. And it's not easy to sort of execute such large projects, but they pulled it off. Now they're trying to do where the city's water is sort of stored well. They're working with NGOs. So sometimes the policymakers are in the right direction. It's not easy for anyone to change it overnight. But people will move to cities. You need to think of it this way. There is no way that you're going to stop people from moving to cities. When internet happened, they said, oh, COVID happened, they said, oh, everyone is going to be in their smaller towns and working remotely. We've seen what happened. So you can't undo. Think about it, yes.
But how? So what I have observed since COVID, personal opinion, or a little before COVID actually, there started this movement of massive deforestation in separate areas. I used to live in Auroville back then, and it started off in Auroville. Post that, it was RA Colony, then the mangroves in Bombay, then Aravali's industrialization taking place in the Aravali section, while the same government announces green wall projects and everything. And then at the same time, Hasdev, which is Chhattisgarh, I mean, Hasdev forest, so Jharkhand and all of these areas, the forest covers are being removed. The National Green Tribunal uh, getting stay orders for these forests, and still the work keeps continuing. So now I understand when you say people are going to move into the cities and development is going to happen and people will move into live a better life. But will we survive without the forests that are being removed at the moment at such a pace? Because that ultimately affects the soil that is left outside the forest, um, all the ecosystems.
Yeah. See, all very difficult questions. For policymakers also, it's very difficult. And at the end of it, we are in a democratic country where politicians survive based on vote banks, which means that what will help human beings will always be given priority, whether we like it or not. Nature will always come. It may not be even in the picture, because immediately in the next elections, they need the people to vote for them. So one vote, one person. And that's the way it is. Unless tomorrow someone says in the policy that 30% of the votes will be with nature, which is what our co-founder keeps advocating for. It's a daydream.
Yes, we should involve the trees and plants and be voices for them.
Yeah, so there are some movements like that, but it's like a utopian dream. So yes, the policies sometimes seem very, very careless. At the end of it, in India, I can speak specifically for this country, we have a huge population and we keep forgetting this. So the government, when it makes decisions, you and me are a very small minority. We're saying, oh, please take care of the forests too, which in paper they do. But at the end of it, I mean, this is very controversial, but when you look at what's happening in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, if you speak to conservationists, they'll give you one side of the story. But if you speak to the security experts, basically the country can be wiped out if we don't have a base there. And so they're doing the right thing for the country. So it's basically, it's always the moral ethics of any decision taken can go in multiple ways. But at the base of it, it's a democracy. People's votes will always matter, number one. Number two, the government is trying to sort of, I'm not talking about party, but generally the government's mechanisms are always in sync with what the global flow is. So for example, there is a policy or a polity called 30 by 30. which is all the countries across the globe have agreed and signed off, I think except US, is 30% of the land and water will be conserved in a country by 2030. It's called 30 by 30 under KNGBF, Cunning Montreal Global Framework. So the direction is there. Now the government is doing multiple things to show that statistic. Whether it is absolutely right on the ground, maybe questionable. Again, not something that we can discuss here, but the direction is set. Sometimes the direction matters. And then so 30 by 30 is something that India is pursuing very, very aggressively. Someone mentioned peatlands here. So we have now more peatlands that are conserved than ever before. So there is movement happening in some directions closer to the city. Sometimes really can't question because like you said, people will move to the cities and sometimes you may have to make very, very hard decisions. Mumbai Metro is a very good example. To say, I don't want to cut trees and then millions of people are, hanging in a train waiting for like 5 hours commute versus one metro line that will cut a few trees. The decision is very clear, right? So you'll always have these tough decisions. Armchair activism, all of us screaming, it is important to share this knowledge. Sometimes it's very difficult to be in the policymakers' chair.
I directly speak because I planted 800 Indian rosewood, red cedar, mahogany, ebony in a span of 1.5 years. And each and every one of them was taken off after 3 years for making a road, which was completely unnecessary in Auroville, because Auroville has formed like that. It's built by people, and it went against all of the 3,000 citizens' wishes. But the power shift that had happened in the governments basically caused this to happen. And yes, I understand where like your perspective as well right now. But yeah, I feel really bad about the way NGT is basically handling matters in our country at the moment for protecting our environment, whether it be soil, whether it be animals, whether it be forests, whether it be the green space in my backyard, in my city. So, or the river bodies or the water bodies or anything like that. Um, Ma'am, I know that you really have to like wind up super soon, so I'm just gonna quickly move on to the last two questions. I'd like to request uh, the guest to kindly unmute yourself. I'm sorry, I can't ask the name because okay, there's no response. I'm gonna move on to the next question from Ms. Nagjyoti. Kindly unmute yourself, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity and today's presentation. It's really, really awesome. And thank you so much for deep study. You are saying that I'm having limited knowledge, but I'm seeing with each and every Q&A as well as during the presentation, you recalled everything and you correlated with all the countries also. That is an excellent one. And I think you made my day, and now it all impact on me personally also to look into the soil in the very environmental aspects point of view. I am basically environmentalist. I am having my own environmental own in the sense I'm associated with the environmental laboratory and Dr. Subbaraw's Environment Center. I am from Andhra Telugu speaking but staying in Sangli, Maharashtra. Maharashtra is actually very rich in agricultural land, and here in Sangli, totally agricultural land and Krishna River, bank of the Krishna River, there is all agricultural, this thing is there. But you see in the industry, once the industry is polluting anything, then there will be a lot of actions taken care by the government and the people are having a more talk on this and shouts are there. But related to agricultural land, there is no ETP, no effluent treatment plant, and no this thing control over there. These banks of the river, all the agricultural, they are having using their pesticides, they're all chemicals and all. And you see, it is all during the rainy season or during the next crop. This is all runoff to the river, Krishna River.
Yes.
So the Krishna River is mainly polluting because of the this runoff of agricultural only, because there are no more much industries over here. Only one industry is there, that is Vasantdada, and which is also not functioning. in a full form. But these are the basic reason, and there is no rejuvenation also. And the people mainly do not like to drink a river water as earlier. They all are relying on the RO water, and RO water is not at all recommended for the human being to drink, because they are not. We are even paying the tax also to the government for the water, but we are not drinking and we are not absorbing it. And here, whatever the water we are utilizing, that is getting, all the vessels are having a scale formation, and all the vessels within some time, that scale formation will be very thick, go on, and there is a leather of the cloth also. The soap you are using as much as, but that leather formation is not there. This all hardness of the water is getting increased because of these all things. That, sorry, I'm going into the water, but
but
because
it,
of
no,
the
it is
soil only,
related.
because of the soil only, these all things are actually happening. Not only this is only one reason, there are many reasons actually. And I'm seeing that the government is not maintaining the beautification of the river also. And I visited recently to whenever I want some peace, I go and sit in front of the river, and I'm seeing all the garbages, and the people, they are doing still the same practices, same as the rural area. Somewhere is a cattle, and some are washing their clothes, and some are doing anything, but there is no restriction, there is no nothing. So these things are also affecting
So, yeah.
human, actually, some
Ma'am, could
Yeah.
you
So,
kindly
ma'am,
complete the question? Ma'am has
yeah.
to push off and
Main
move to next
my
week.
this thing is there. I am actually environmentally. So we people are having laboratory. In laboratory, we are having the soil also. We are aggregated by the NABL, and soil some parameters we are analyzing, not only for the industries but for the farmers and all. Yes, it is very difficult to maintain the grade of the soil and organic matter and all. That is actually affecting, and mainly because of this organic carbon, the compost also, in the compost also, C/N ratio maintenance is very problematic, and I think the quality of the compost is also not good. So I am totally correlating with your this thing. And if possible, can you please add your details into the chat, so that further communication possible.
sure, ma'am. So just on this water bodies being polluted with the runaway water, both from agriculture and also the industries. So we've always had pollution control laws from long time, and the enactment was not very executed very well across the states. But what is, at least I'm talking from a very optimistic point of view, obviously it doesn't work always like this. The younger generation, the younger IAS officers, they're more attuned to climate change, and also they're supported by a lot of new tech that is coming in, which is basically the geospatial data. So a farmer or an industrialist or someone who's polluting cannot hide for too long. So if the law enactment becomes stricter, and also this data is showing with proof, not like what you see in just the Google Earth or something like that. Now you have satellite data that can tell you land misuse. It can tell you, hopefully in some time, even the soil performance and what is being left into the water at a very minuscule level, which we didn't have access to earlier. We talk about AI and all of that. It is going to bring all of this data together to the fore in a very transparent way. So the hope is that enactment execution becomes stricter with the support of this proof. It's an optimistic take. Every day, obviously, at the state level, at the pollution officers level, at a farmer citizens level, things are very, very different. But the access to transparent data, I hope, will change this, because the youngsters, if you're looking at data every day and you can clearly see which industry is polluting, it becomes a citizen centric activity. So citizen science will play a very, very important role. And I'm one of those people who tries to pursue citizen science, push more and more citizens to be engaged in this. One of the reasons I'm sparing time for this is exactly that. So the hope is the younger generation is very active. There is something like social media, which will allow you to spread the news. There is something where the younger, I have really good hope for the younger civil officers who are coming into play, who seem to be taking action much more strongly. And also from a policy perspective, ma'am, the industries today, I think there is now a new setup that's been given, where they have to sort of show their pollution control. Again, I'm using very broad words here. And also the carbon footprint in a very transparent manner that is publicly available. The reports are all there. So, for example, steel sector has to become green steel, or every industry is being given their targets, including the mining, including all the heavily polluting industries, because it is coming from a global mandate. We have a COP Paris Agreement where we've committed to all of these. So it's called India's NDCs, nationally determined contributors, and this is seen at a global level. So even if the local executions are not happening on paper, they have to show that they are doing the right things. So with all of this, I hope the change is there. It is not going to happen in one day for sure.
Yes.
The reason that you are asking the question is you're worried. And when you are worried, you will take some action that will push, and multitude of these pushes will transform the country is the hope.
Yeah, ma'am, your details, please. That is
I'll just add it, ma'am, once I finish this Q&A session. Even the team they will be also posting it on the...
Yes, ma'am, we'll share it in your registered email ID with
Thank you.
session of the
I'm regular
recordings
attendee
of the
because
session.
I'm very much inspired and very nice all the presentations. Thank you, WishwaTalk, and thank you to ma'am for your all work. I would like to be connected with you.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, with that,
my pleasure.
I would like to announce the closure of this session. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. I think there's still a couple of questions, but I request the participants to write to me on at trishant@wishwa.org, and I will send the questions to ma'am's contact details that I have. And with her permission, I will share her contact, email contact through mail with the recording of this session and with the PPT. For anybody who's missed a part of this session, I'm pasting the link of this session in the chat box right now, so you can save it, share it with your friends. Also, thank you again, ma'am, for joining us. I'm very glad that you took up, so much of patience to answer each and every one of these questions from all different perspectives, from all different people from different fields. It takes a lot of patience, and thank you so much for the time, ma'am. I can't express my gratitude enough, but
thank you
I would
so
like
much.
to.
I just hope this time was well spent and all of you learned a wee bit. And we do our little bit to sort of contribute. Don't think that what you're doing doesn't make any difference. It will.
Yes,
small drops will all come together. So thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye.
I'll connect with you later over a call,
Okay.
after a couple of.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, and to all the viewers who are with us up until now, kindly you can send your questions to me on Krishant@wishwa.org, and I will forward the questions to ma'am and get them answered and revert back to your registered email IDs. Kindly do mention your registered email address while you send the questions to me.